city of San Francisco has been warned of a hippie invasion come summer in numbers almost too staggering to comprehend. The Park and Recreation Department has ruled that no longer will the hippies be allowed to sleep in Golden Gate Park. And Police Chief Thomas Cahill says the rule will be rigidly enforced.
If they come in and you have them in the park where there are no facilities for them, then you are going to have a health problem.
Chief, are you threatening to kick them out of San Francisco?
I never said a word about that, but I will take whatever police action is necessary, and I'm not going to cross bridges until I come to them. And certainly nobody should let their young children come into San Francisco unsupervised to become a part of a group such as that.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. Okay, it's another episode, another podcast of the Ferris Wheel Classic Rock Show. Thank you for your emails, your show ideas, your general support, your cross-your-heart support, really. It's growing because of people like you. And yes, of course, we have a website. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Cap City Beats. And no, I'm not going to give you the address. Show a little initiative with something called Google Search. So, on with the show. This is it.
The hippies seem to be a new way of life. That's their right. But they have no right to inflict their way of life on everybody else to the detriment and the exclusion of people continuing their way. And when they block the streets, then it is interference with the normal, routine life of a community. It will be stopped.
Oh, yes, they will be stopped. That was John F. Shelley, the mayor of San Francisco, back in the summer of 1967. You know, so much has been said about the Summer of Love that it behooves me, and, you know, I don't get a chance to use the word behooves much. It behooves me to discuss the events, the people, the bands, and the times from a slightly unfamiliar angle, a bit of novelty. And it's this: no social movement spontaneously appears. Wow. No, it's both a reaction to current circumstances and whatever came before, right? In other words, cultural events need what they call in drama inciting incidents. So let's begin with a general overview of the Summer of Love, and then we can discuss why it happened and what happened to it. And along the way, we will talk about the music of the time, classic stuff, which really did provide a kind of integrated soundtrack. Okay, this is from modified from Wikipedia. It's not very long. Bear with me. You're going to get the facts. Okay, the Summer of Love was a social phenomenon that occurred during the summer of 1967, when as many as 100,000 people, mostly young people, sporting hippie fashions of dress and behavior, converged in San Francisco's neighborhood of Haight-Ashbury. More broadly, the Summer of Love encompassed the hippie music, drug, anti-war, and free love scene throughout the west coast of the United States, and as far away as New York City. Hippies, sometimes called flower children, were an eclectic group. Many were suspicious, of the government, rejected consumerist values, and generally opposed the Vietnam War. Okay, and a few were interested in politics. Others were concerned more with art or spiritual and meditative practices. You know, that's not bad. That's a good thumbnail summation of the Summer of Love. Okay, ask yourself, is the Summer of Love an important cultural event? Why are we even doing this podcast about it? Well, my answer is that yeah. And I can introduce evidence in the court that I think it's a cultural event that influenced all aspects of American society, and in turn, the Western world. So it's worth pursuing. And in light of this podcast, it was highly influential toward inspiring classic rock bands, from the Grateful Dead, Jefferson Airplane, to the Beatles, okay? As I said at the top, the Summer of Love didn't just Shazam appear, all right? A number of vectors crossed. For one, in 1967, there were more U.S. citizens, 25 years of age and younger, than at any other time before or since in the nation's history. That's an extremely important influence. Think Beatlemania. Next, the Vietnam War was raging. 1967, it was picking up steam. So, along with conscription, of course, it was a big deal. People forget that when you look back, you see, the clips of the war, news footage, but conscription on the home front caused a lot of trouble. Important influence. And next, you had drugs everywhere. LSD, as was marijuana and associated derivatives. Next, San Francisco itself. It had been home to the beatniks, so it had a current reputation as a place that was receptive to the arts and to alternative lifestyles. They didn't have this event happening in some little town in Iowa. It's impossible. It's so San Francisco. And so we have a pretty healthy environment to germinate what became known as the 60s counterculture. And our focus today, the Summer of Love. But still, before we light up the patchouli oil and get the lava lamp going, let's look at an event and the man behind the event, which contributed in a fundamental, crucial way to that special summer. As an aside, folks, everything's contiguous. That's the way life works, right? Let's talk about Michael Bowen, or Bowen. I'm going to say Bowen for the rest of this. I don't know. A name you likely don't recognize, but he was an important artist and an unintentional, almost like a transparent architect of the Summer of Love. Michael Bowen co-founded it was called the Visionary Art Movement. Visionary art aims to transcend the physical world and portrays a wider vision of awareness, including spiritual or mystical themes, you could say. And he worked with canvas and paper and etchings based on Jungian psychology. And, by the way, he was a close friend of Janis Joplin. And he was known by the beats. So he's one of those crossover artists like, Michael McClure, who was a beat guy, but also was buddies with Jim Morrison. So he was well known by the beats, as I say, and he organized the first human be-in. That's B-E-I-N, be-in in San Francisco. In the summer of 1966, in Frisco, he established a studio. It was really like an ashram in the middle of the Haight-Ashbury neighborhood. And he co-founded an underground newspaper called the San Francisco Oracle. That was very popular and influential in the 60s counterculture. And Bowen became the art director and let his studio become the offices for the Oracle, while a man named Alan Cohen was the editor. Let's listen to Alan explain the development of the Oracle, how it came to be.
The idea for the Oracle came to me in a dream. I woke up in the morning and remembered seeing a newspaper being read all over the world with rainbows on it. And I went out in the streets and started to tell people I had a dream about a newspaper being read all around the world with rainbows on it. Everyone said, wow, what a great idea, let's do it.
And that was Alan Cohen, the editor of the newspaper, the San Francisco Oracle. So on October the 6th, 1966, Bowen and Cohen organized the Love Pageant Rally. Okay, it was a celebration against the new law criminalizing LSD in California. So you got to remember, up until then, acid was legal. When Ken Kesey got stoned and wrote One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, it was legal. They organized this event to protest that, and he invited Bowen, one of his close pal, Janis Joplin, to perform. And she did for free. She brought along her band, Big Brother and the Holding Company. And about 30,000 people attended the Love Pageant Rally. while it was on, Bowen discussed with his buddies a bigger event, and they would celebrate the hippie counterculture. So the Human Being, which it became, took place on January the 14th, 1967. You can kind of mark this as like the official beginning of the Summer of Love, you know. The event was organized by Bowen, and he created the poster. He was an artist, created the poster promoting the event. He got the city permit, and he invited speakers from the Beat Generation, including Allen Ginsberg. And he invited Timothy Leary, who said for the first time, as I know, in public, his famous "turn on, tune in, drop out." And the Hells, the Grateful Dead played the Jefferson Airplane, and they played for free. That's not bad. The Hells Angels provided security. That's not good. Hello, Altamont. So the Human Being was a kind of coming together of people for no other reason than just to be. Can you imagine that today? We're all so jaded. There's no possible way it'd show up. You know, they just wanted to make love, not war. They wanted to commune with friends and likely take massive amounts of drugs. So that being was sometimes referred to as a love-in. And it was designed by Bowen to be imitated. God bless him. He didn't try to monetize it and parcel it off. He wanted it to be copied. And it was. And he considered it to be performance art. And that's why he's been called the father of performance art. Okay, so now we're primed for the Summer of Love, courtesy of Michael Bowen. By the way, one more note on Michael. In October of '67, there were about 75,000 anti-war protesters surrounding the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. And on that day, our friend Michael Bowen organized 200 pounds of daisies, flowers, to be dropped from an aircraft onto the Pentagon. Oh, but the FBI heard about it, and they stopped the aircraft from taking off. So Michael went over and he picked up the flowers, and he drove back to the demonstration, handed it the flowers. And somehow they made their way to the front of the demonstration, and some of the protesters took the flowers and poked them in the ends of the rifles that were pointed at them by the military police. And there was a photographer that day who took a picture. His name was Bernie Boston. And I think the photograph was actually called Flower Power. And that's where that saying started, right? Everything's joined here. It's a very famous photograph of a young blonde man putting a daisy in the end of this rifle. The kid had a lot of guts, right? And that photograph was up for a Pulitzer Prize in 1968. So there we go, the Human Being. So we have a pretty good groovy precedent. Let's go on to the Summer of Love. It originated with the formation of a council for the Summer of Love. That's how we got the name, Council for the Summer of Love, during the spring of 1967. And it was a response to the convergence of all the young people coming into Haight-Ashbury. So this council sought to alleviate some of the problems that were anticipated. Good for them. They set up something called the Free Clinic, which was a free health clinic, and they organized free food, sanitation, and they coordinated churches and social groups. And the media started getting involved, usually the kiss of death, but the media started getting involved. I remember Hunter Thompson called it Hashbury. Yeah, that stuck around for a while, the Hashbury. So the media reported on the counterculture, and it went outside San Francisco. I mean, there was the Fantasy Fair and the Magic Mountain Music Festival in Marin County. And, of course, there was the famous Monterey Pop Festival, right, in June '67. Wow, that was a great documentary by Pennebaker, right? It was an amazing documentary. And it was organized by John Phillips of the Mamas and Papas. And he wrote a song, I remember, called San Francisco, Be Sure to Wear Flowers in Your Hair. And he gave it to his buddy, Scott McKenzie, to sing. had a huge hit with it, sold 7 million copies. Mackenzie was the guy who introduced Mamas and Papas, by the way, to the producer Lou Adler. Wow. And that marriage took off. Mamas and Papas became megastars. Anyway, to get back to our topic here, that song also encouraged kids to come to San Francisco. So about 100,000 of them did. And they also went to Berkeley and other Bay Area cities. So obviously San Francisco could not, accommodate this influx. And everything degenerated, as it tends to, deteriorated, homelessness, hunger, drug problems, crime. So by the end of the summer, many of the participants left the scene. They joined something called Back to the Land movement, kind of a communal living, farming, and it was popular in the late 60s. Some of them went back to school, and some of them just got a job. And those remaining in the hate wanted to commemorate the conclusion of the event, and they held a mock funeral entitled The Death of the Hippie.
The hippies strike back. They hold a mock funeral to symbolize the death of the term hippie. Complete with make-believe corpse, the funeral also marks the birth of a new name for the sandals, beard, and bead set. They want to be known as America's free men, or freebies. That figures. A funeral pyre with the fake corpse removed and some classy Indian dancing highlight the 3-day ceremony in the Haight-Ashbury section of San Francisco. Flower power on parade.
Oh yes, the death of the hippie. So in New York, there was a rock musical called Hair. I'm sure you know that. And it told the story of the counterculture. And it played off Broadway in October of 67. Everything happened so quickly. So that's it, folks. That's a primer for you on the much fabled Summer of Love that you'll hear about if you're interested in classic rock and roll. So now you know who started it, how it started, and what it was about, and how it ended as everything ends. And we flashed over some great classic rock acts that provided the soundtrack. So it offers kind of I've always thought, a focal point, a place where you can lower your wings, so to speak, and touch down. And throw yourself in a saffron robe and put flowers in your hair. It's a protected, isolated moment in time. Never to be repeated, thank God. And impossible to emulate. It's a special moment in a special place, and it changed the way we see and hear things. And like the best of such moments, it was free, unplanned, unstructured, and organic before people used the word organic to make money. And it had the wherewithal, or the luck, to leave the party before it peaked. This has been Ian Clarke for the Ferris Wheel Classic Rock Show, and I mean it. Try wearing some flowers in your hair, but never, ever hire the Hells Angels to provide event security. God help you. Take care.